I think she's going to do more of this.
Later on the day, you want to do this.
Yeah.
Oh my God, all day, yeah, that's right, I was all done.
Yeah.
No, step break was actually just for Hannah, it wasn't
Good break.
for that, for planning.
So while you're listening to this, I'm going to ask you for some principles that come out from the narration, and still think about, because we're going to brainstorm the
In
benefits
spite of
and
the best
failures.
proactive classroom management, misbehavior will occur.
You see me talk?
What?
Will occur.
You see me talking to someone?
When a student disrupts the classroom with his or her behavior, our responses are likely to be scattered, inconsistent, and sometimes merely reactive.
You know better.
A discipline plan is fundamental to proactive classroom management.
Number one rule that I have is
A classroom discipline plan means not only that rules and expectations are clearly delineated, but also that it is clear to students what the consequences will be if the rules are broken or expectations are not met.
make sure that you are
In general, negative consequences are overused in the classroom. There are less severe consequences.
Sorry, did you hear that last statement that they said? What did they say?
Negative consequences are overused.
In the classroom here. What do you think about that statement? Do you believe that?
Yes. I think it can be an easy trap to fall into. You need to make sure that you're focusing on the positive with that child or other children to show the child what they should be doing.
And it might also show the students that to get your attention is you use negative things to get there, and that's not what you want.
Yeah.
So the good ones might think, I never get noticed, so I'm just going to do what he does, he always gets my attention.
So is that just like a real reflection, eh? Because you don't really know until you actually hear that it's researched. Thank you.
Unless are not met.
make sure that you are
In general, negative consequences are overused in the classroom. There are less severe consequences and less punitive strategies which should be tried first. We call this the law of least disruptive intervention.
Oh, I'd love to call on you, but you're not sitting in a chair. Come on, sit in
In
the
the
chair.
discipline plan, consequences should be organized in a hierarchy from the least disruptive intervention to the most disruptive.
So that I know that you're
For example, when a rule is broken the first time, there will be a verbal warning.
Just carry on.
The second time, a privilege will be withdrawn. The third time, a timeout may be given. The fourth time, parents will be called. The fifth time, the principal will be called in, and so on. By making sure that students are familiar with this discipline plan and understand the consequences, the proactive teacher ensures that students know exactly how the teacher will respond to misbehavior.
Latasha.
This increases children's sense of security. A discipline plan enables them to see consequences as the natural outcomes of inappropriate behavior.
What letter is that? It's
The major alternatives before resorting to negative consequences are the strategies of ignoring, redirecting, and reminders or warnings.
what letter?
Why is this important? Did you hear the steps?
Yeah, I was quite intrigued as the principal was the fifth call.
That's what
I
I
thought,
think. Yeah.
Right, he's coming in early. He's coming, I think.
So what was the first thing they did?
First verbal, and then
Loss of privilege.
loss of privilege, parents,
Time out.
time out, parents, and then principal.
So you reflect back, remember the last session we had, we asked you to bring, if you had, discipline plan for your classroom, and that the children need to know what it is. So in a real class situation, different schools do different things. So in this plan, these are the steps. And you remember remember the behaviour plans that you have in your handouts about the actions. What do? The step 1, step 2, step 3. It seems a lot, but actually, do you think that's fair? If the children don't know the discipline plan in your classroom to work towards, it's like rules. So, like that, that's what she's saying, that's the research that the children need to know.
Yeah, expectations.
Carry on, Liz, thank you.
Carry on, that's the end of that one.
This,
And they can work in all ages, they find it, because there's no surprises. Because even from juniors right through to seniors, they understand that process. So, I mean, when you get older to the year 7 and 8, you say, well, I didn't know I was going to go to step 4 would be da-da-da. You know, but they all are aware of what, straight through the whole school.
so can you go back to your hierarchy, the discipline plan, the hierarchy form that we passed down to you?
Sorry, I don't know which one.
I think it's in session,
The last one, eh?
the last, session 4. Yeah. You can either, just actually 2 examples, one step 1 to 4 and one step 1 to 8. That's the kind of discipline plan that some schools have adopted. And they can actually put that in the PB4L strategy. Because that plan is an example of children's talk. It's simple. So that's, when we say discipline hierarchy, she mentioned that in this vignette. Do you think children were able to understand what those mean?
No.
If you blow it up and if you coach them through? I'm just saying, you don't have to, that's just an example, a guideline. Some schools that have been on this course have adopted that, but they've changed it to suit their school.
Could be a visual in your classroom, eh?
It's a visual.
Like I wouldn't have it like, you could do it differently and they could write you're at step 2 and they can
Yes.
physically put their name and they can physically see what step they're at. Oh shit, I want to get to step 3, so I'm going to, pull it back.
You know, some of you are using that, what is it, self-regulation?
Yeah.
And it's blown up and it's coloured. And so with those discipline hierarchy plans, you can create it to your school or to your class, but it should be a school-wide. And it's colour-coded.
It would have to be school-wide, wouldn't it, if it's going to be reinforced everything?
So this is the kind of conversation you could have in your staff room with your teachers. Teachers love that. And it's simple, especially if you haven't got one, but if you have one, you actually can talk to your PB4L team and share them. Because it's actually, children will see that, oh God, I'm not going to go to step 4. They can see it as a visual cue. And that's what she was explaining in this introduction.
You look a bit confused, Anna. Did you have something to put your thinking?
No, I've come across classrooms in the past when, in the past I've displayed something like that. Yeah. And we had some very negative feedback from parents around embarrassing the kids by having the names up there with a you're on step 3.
I'd agree.
So if the names are up there, but if the names aren't
There's
up
no names on the board.
No, this isn't
It's
the
just
same.
So that's what I'm just looking at that one.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
perhaps
yeah,
going,
Yeah.
no.
We weren't actually looking at those things. It's like that school needs those kind of things because there's only a group of them in their classroom.
Yeah.
But if you're going to adopt a system, behaviour system, you need to share it with your parents. So when they come to your door,
Parents would be on, and plus they need to know where their names are to
that's right.
put their thing in.
You don't just put things up to you and that's it. Because somebody will rock up to your room, your parent, and see that, oh God, I don't like that. This plan is not like that. It's a visual plan for children to actually understand. Actually, because what we see is only the teacher knows. Because the two children don't know the steps. Why are they going to the principal's office? Sometimes you go, why? It's just a reminder to have those kind of things displayed.
I like that, and I think if we do have something at school a bit like that, I just think if it's on display, it's a good prompt for me, but it would be worth putting it into children's space for them to be able to use it.
Well, that's what that other school did. They adopted it for the children to understand in different level. And it's a coloured. I've got an example, but it's at home. I'll bring it when we're on session 7, when we share resources. But it's actually a very simple, and the words are very so 5-year-olds can understand. But they also put symbols on there too. Yeah. So that's what that was about.
Similar to how some teachers put the next learning step, I guess.
Yeah.
So the kids know where they're at and what they need to do to get.
Gives them some ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just means that nothing's a hidden agenda, so children know. So just to clarify, we're not talking about putting the children's names up by each step. It's just that you might be pointing to the step and saying that you're on step 1. How can you avoid getting to step 2?
But you know, it can be as simple as like, I don't normally just do 3, you get 3 chances, but it has to be consistent with the other teachers.
Yes.
So I might say, that's your first one, or second one, actually you did really awesome, take those, we're starting again. Like we're going back to how you did awesome, you made sure you put your hand up, whatever. But how does it go with the other teachers? Are they doing the 3 steps? And then you go to, okay, we're going to move to the next step. You've been clear of expectations.
Well, it is clear, and it's also consistent.
Yeah.
It's consistent with the whole, because that new entrance child next year will go to that class. Other things the same, other guy, all of those things are the same. Don't you think it'll be easier?
Makes the children confused though, because they've got set
Yes.
rules here.
Yeah.
So if you're going to 5 different classrooms, it's 5 different rules. You wonder why sometimes it's because
And then the playground is a whole other story at lunchtime. All the teachers are on board.
I like the steps idea. I really do. But you put
It's
it into
consistent
different-
with the whole school, and everyone knows. Not one rule in that class and the other rules in that classes.
I think it's non-threatening for the kids too to be able to do, I know that, and then you can have that conversation individually with them. Why did you get to step 3? Have that thing, how can you get back? And then go,
Yeah.
awesome, and then turn it into a positive thing and take it off. And then
Yes.
they own that
Yeah.
shit, so.
But even like how you said, they go to the principal's office, but we turn around and say that you're going to the principal's office for good things.
Yeah.
So there's that, hey, what do the kids think, oh, do I go there for good things or not? Normally you can tell them why, but then the seniors might see it as a different thing too, like the year 7 and 8.
Every time they see a kid go to the office.
Yeah, oh, they're in trouble. Yeah, but it's not.
But they don't see that they've got their book and they're going to take
Yeah.
them the whatever.
What you're trying to do is you're trying to empower your children alongside you instead of, because they don't know. It's like when you praise children. You
It's
have to
growth within them
explain
too.
specifically why you're doing that.
Yeah.
So all we're saying is a visual cue is actually works.
Right, we're going on to...
We're going on to benefits and barriers. Okay?
What?
We're going to brainstorm benefits first.
Cool.
About
Consequences.
consequences, yes.
Don't be shy.
You'll redirect behaviour.
Boundaries? See me with the bees?
Let's just see if I've got another colour here.
Got a pen?
6 boundaries?
Cool. What did you say, Hannah?
It can redirect behaviour.
Ah, there we go. Awesome.
Can be a teaching opportunity.
Cool. something like that, because even in your role play, you were teaching children that sometimes in life things annoy you and you have to ignore it and keep going. So yeah, that was good.
Okay, some more benefits?
I'm looking at this side of the room, who's been really quiet. What other?
It must be the COVID.
This is the, just getting used to, daylight saving side. I met a woman yesterday who said, now, daylight saving is starting next Sunday, isn't it?
Benefits
I would
or
say
barriers?
for some kids, it's a deterrent.
Deterrent. Tell me if I've spelled it wrong.
But I stress not. Just like in society, it's not a deterrent.
That's right, that's right.
Not strong enough.
Well, the ideal benefit is that the class is on task and doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
Engagement.
Cool.
And that they might feel safe as well.
Yeah.
Know what those consequences are for.
Definitely.
Yeah, they know where they stand. Yeah. Awesome. Any barriers with consequences?
Some kids don't care.
Yeah.
And they don't care if their parents are called or.
And then some won't take the gamble, take that,
Easy way out.
or even the opposite, they won't push themselves
Pull your
because
bluff.
they're scared. Are they, they breaking
Take
that
a risk.
over that line, so they won't take that risk. Risk takers won't step forward.
So risk taking,
It could be shameful for them. They could it could affect their self-esteem and their self-image.
Belittle,
Shame.
It can,
manners.
it can cause a problem with relationships either with the other children or with the teacher and the child.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can just be, like retribution. Like you did something stink, so now you get a stink consequence. That has nothing to do with what you did,
yeah. I hate to say it, but sometimes, not any of you of course, teachers can take it personally and say,
Definitely.
not us though, hey?
So it could be, don't have a clean slate.
Yeah.
Give them a
As I
reputation
say,
and that.
Label.
Yeah.
Reputation is a good one.
And labelling is a good one. As I say, in past experiences of both
Yes.
the teacher and the
Yeah.
child.
Yes.
Yeah, reputation is a big one. I've got a boy in my class who came from a different school and he's really come a long way. Like he's pretty much done a 360, but we've just got a reliever in who taught him at his previous school. She's holding it against him a bit, his reputation is, and it's real stink for him.
It is.
But
And that's again, they're taking it personally as well, and what's the best interest of the child.
That could be our staff meeting brainstorm.
yeah, yeah.
Sorry, it's me. I thought I turned it off. Mine's off.
It sounds like something.
Okay, any more?
Sometimes the consequences, they end up like having a great time and enjoying it.
Yeah.
Like a sensory room type.
It'll shift the power dynamic in the classroom.
This is where it might just be like the interesting section.
Yeah.
Inconsistencies as well across
Yeah.
everybody.
Yes. And that's actually a huge one, isn't it?
So we got lots of barriers there,
Yes,
which is really good to highlight those. It's really reflection
Yes,
for yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
And for some of those ones too, like inconsistency, you can think now, how could that be a benefit? You know, we could consistently put the same consequences in each time.
You know, in the behaviour plan, we do that, eh?
Absolutely, yeah.
So with the benefits, it also improves the teacher practice. So like the consequences, because you get, sometimes it doesn't work. So you try a different strategy or different way of.
Yeah, and that's that reflective practice,
Yeah,
eh?
because you're saying that the child gets, and we do, you see that gets labelled, so it's like have teacher reflection on, okay, why am I thinking that? What can I do better so that I'm not thinking of this child? What does this child do really well?
Yeah,
Not just focusing on the negative, on the
Yeah.
barriers.
So when we look at the benefits and barriers, and you look at the benefits, there's a few there, there's a few in the barriers. So how can we make those barriers come to benefits? You know, on your behaviour plan, you have the behaviour, and then you have positive opposites.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually do that
Mhm.
with all of those barriers.
Yeah.
So,
I think a lot of these, like retribution, consistency, all those kind of things, can be positive if you make a planned behaviour plan and it's really consistent the same each time. More gated.
that's really good.
Okay, next up. Right, we are going on to talking about natural and logical consequences. So, let's see. Yep.
You're on that side.
Yep.
We have to brainstorm, what's the difference between punishment and consequences?
Punishment, I think punishment with intent. Do you know what I mean by intent? Like it's.
Punishment makes the teacher feel.
I was just gonna say, it's.
Say that again.
That's what you're thinking about.
Yeah,
The punishment doesn't really have the child in mind, it's more
the
the teacher wanting to feel better, or the victim, or the even the kid seeing that that person had something bad happen because they did something bad.
Yeah. Yes.
The consequences that like reflect their action.
Good. Yeah.
There's if it's teacher focused, I'd probably add what Hayley's saying, it can be kid focused, it can be victim focused, rather than the perpetrator.
exactly like Georgia's student, definitely, you know, the reliever. Like straight away she's coming in and she's already know what she's going to be doing to this student who just steps left.
So what do you think that could help that reliever?
Put him in a different class, probably, or away.
Oh yeah,
The
that's the
teacher.
thing.
Looking at those
Josh is aware of it.
Mm.
She's only been in a couple of times, but every time she sends them out to me.
So that's your release day
Yeah.
wiped out.
I really think
So to me, you must be in class.
he's
So-
still no little darling, but he's
Yeah.
definitely
Still
come a
no.
long way.
And those are
And
the
she
steps
doesn't
that we
recognise
celebrate.
Yeah.
So how can we help
Georgia.
help the reliever? What's a strategy we can do?
Maybe get it.
I know you're saying.
I was gonna say,
If you have the
voice.
option.
I was thinking if you said it.
Just as an
Just
option.
explain the steps that you use for,
Yeah.
you know, the behaviours that you know
Mm.
are likely to come up and say, look, this is what I'm ignoring, you know, you know, so that she knows.
On the consequence, then I can put planned.
Plan.
Yeah, rather than,
It's like one of his things the other day was she didn't start the day with handwriting this, and I just wanted to do my handwriting.
yeah. Yeah.
stick to the
Just
routine.
stick to that route.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to tell that, I said
yeah.
the route for today, can you just facilitate, students know where they're going, you'll just need to
Yeah.
facilitate.
Okay, so Georgia, you're aware of all of that, so that's what, you got a bit of a task ahead of you to support the reliever
Yeah.
and that student.
Yeah.
So,
Consequences are more likely to be linked to the action, if you like,
Yep.
rather than,
Good.
so, you know, if they throw everything around the room, they have to pick it up.
Yes.
With their palms. Something, yeah.
Have you ever heard this, right? You've thrown that around the room, so you're not going to have an iPad for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Even as a
Yeah.
parent.
No, never.
No, mine was really peachy looking.
So any
Yeah.
more?
Any other consequences, things that you can think of?
It's an opportunity for them to learn and do better.
Oh,
Yeah,
It's like a life lesson. Yeah.
It's often was a positive, opposite,
yes.
often the consequences just doing what they were supposed to have done the first time.
So consequences involves the victim and everyone comes up with a consequence, not just the punishment, this is how it is.
Yep. So that's like your restorative stuff.
Yeah, it
eh?
is, yeah. It's acknowledging your, I don't know how to put it.
So punishment for that one will be, there's no steps, it's
Yeah.
straight to that, whatever the punishment is.
The kids normally don't learn anything from the punishment,
Yeah.
so there's nothing associated with it. It's
Yes.
just you're in trouble, so you have to do this, so they don't really make the connection.
I've been into a class where a teacher, the boy, he's only 5, and he's thrown all the stuff out of it, like in the classroom, everything's everywhere. And she was quite stressed. She said, oh, you just go and have a cup of coffee, you go and do what you have to do. When in there, the little boy's sitting on a chair like this on the table. I said, first thing is get your bum off the table, because he's Māori, you know what to do, and you're going to clean this up because you made the mess. And he looks at me and he goes, okay. But she just sort of said to him, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that, and he didn't do
They're
anything.
straight there.
Straight to the
punishment.
Yeah.
So he had no acknowledgement of what he had done.
Kind of just like barking.
Yeah.
I think of sometimes, you know, when you're in that reactive state to something, you go for, you know, that's why you have to kind of have a plan of what you can do so that you
That's-
don't react
yeah.
rather than, yeah.
Yeah,
Punishment
that's the chapter 15, hey, Faith, chapter 15. So you're not
Yeah.
reactive, it's
Yeah.
positive stuff.
But also bringing back in our, you know, he knew not to sit on the table. So straight away was bring back the tikanga.
Yeah.
And also, and you're sitting like this, I said, well, take a deep breath, take 3 deep breaths, because look at the mess you're going to clean up. You
Yeah.
made the mess, and
Yeah.
didn't even know what it was.
Yep.
So it's clear.
And that's a situation same as Georgia, it's a reliever
Yeah.
coming in. And this 5-year-old,
Yeah.
if there's a kid I'll take home to live with me, will be that one, believe it or not. Beautiful, but when the reliever comes in, straight away the boundaries.
So that's why it's really important to have a discipline plan in your
Yep.
room.
Yes, and she has had some support around that too, working with support people to, with her behaviour management strategies.
So
Sorry, Haley, you were going to say something too?
It can be damaging, punishment can be damaging to a child, especially if they have trauma or something around that.
And it can certainly be damaging to the relationship.
Yes.
Sometimes things go wrong.
We can't be all, we're gonna react sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just like, but then it's like, them owning their own things.
Oh, cool. Okay, so,
Apologise.
okay, so for our punishment, so we kind of agreed that it's not the best way to go. It's really teacher focused, so kind of it's looking at what's the benefit for the teacher first. It's not, and it can be focused on the victim as opposed to, I'm not sure why we wrote that. So it's not,
Liz, that was, like if somebody gets hurt, they come and tell you and you're immediately, bam, telling the perpetrator off.
right,
So it's appeasing the victim, but you could also appease the victim by doing a consequence instead of a punishment.
Okay.
That's sometimes why we might do it.
yes, cool, right, thank you.
Yeah.
There's no steps, and like you say, it can be reactive. Kids don't learn, so they don't make any progress. It's reactive, it's damaging, especially for children who may have had experiences with trauma, and it damages that relationship, and that's the key thing, isn't it? You want to keep that relationship with kids going. Consequences reflects on action, it's planned, it links specifically to the thing that the child's done. It's an opportunity to reflect or to learn or to be able to do better in life. It's the positive opposite, and it acknowledges the victim, so it's a restorative process.
And just on that 5-year-old with the teacher, they didn't have a great relationship.
Yes.
And if she saw him, he'd walk out and say, hello, fire, and she'd walk straight past them. So I could see why.
Just
but
the negative all
yeah,
the
it
time.
was. I just said, I'll help you tidy up, but you did this when you tidy up. So the relationship was not there.
When we see his name, we're like, what?
That's not cool.
Not cool.
Like, is she a mum?
The same as you.
On to defining verbs. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay, we're going to. Yeah. So this is the narration aid talking about natural resources. Okay, so just listening again. Sorry. Listening again. We're looking at consequences. So there's different types of consequences. So this one is looking at what's the difference between natural and logical consequences.
And in this vignette, we're going to identify
Oh, we're going up
some
to
of the
vignette 35? Oh, okay.
This one here.
Sorry.
Principles.
Section bullets coming up.
This is a listening activity again.
Yes.
No matter how consistently you use ignoring, redirecting, and warnings or reminders as strategies for dealing with inappropriate classroom behavior, and no matter how consistently you reinforce appropriate behavior, there are still times when children will continue to misbehave. In these cases, their misbehavior needs to be dealt with by imposing a negative consequence.
You got out of your seat, that's the third warning.
A negative consequence is something the child does not want, such as being last in line, losing recess, getting time out in the classroom, missing free time, loss of a privilege, and so on. Consequences do not have to be severe to be effective. The key is consistency, not severity. Consequences must be applied consistently rather than varying according to the situation. They must be applied uniformly. That is, they must be the same for everybody. And they must be applied promptly. That is, immediately after the misbehavior. For this reason, it is a good idea to avoid establishing consequences which are inconvenient to enforce. Consequences are a way of holding children accountable for their behavior. Students must be familiar with the discipline plan in advance so that they can see the negative consequences as the direct result of their behavior. Whenever possible, consequences should be presented as a choice the child has made. For example, you hit Carl. You have made the choice to go to timeout for 5 minutes.
Cool. So, do you remember the principles they focused on there? Consequences should be consistent. Oh, yep.
Uniform.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
3 more. Did you hear the other ones?
Focus on the choice, not person.
Applied straight away.
Yeah, applied promptly. That is true, but that wasn't one of the ones they said. Applied promptly. Something about how easy it was for you. Convenient to enforce, yeah. And the last one, remember they said, you hit Carl, so
You made the choice.
you made the choice. Yeah, so it's presented as a choice.
Sorry, what did you say? The last one? What?
Convenient.
Convenient.
Thanks for listening to me.
I've been here.
Convenient, cool. Okay.
And the other one was?
Choice.
Choice, child choice.
Oh, here.
Yeah, no, Ben said another one that wasn't there,
Yeah.
but that's okay. Focus on the
Choice.
No,
The-
focus on the child.
So on the behaviour, not the person.
Right, focus on the behaviour. Yeah, and that's quite a thing too, isn't it? Rather than you are a bad child, you made the choice to call out, or you made, yeah, cool. So we're gonna look at another vignette now, and this is a vignette where children are lining up. I'm sure you've never seen this before. They're arguing over who gets to have partners.
Yeah. You're gonna wanna.
Tim's my partner.
Peter? No, I won't accept that. You need to go to the end of the line. You can take Carl to the end of the line too if he is your partner.
Okay, cool. The consequence.
Go to the back of the line.
Go to the back of the line. So looking at quick consequences and kind of natural consequences that it just happens, you know. This is where you were, so you go to the back of the line. Do you want to do some other natural consequences now, or do you want to show that vignette again?
We'll do this other one.
Okay, cool. So this is another one of lining up, and in this one the teacher's making it quite clear what his expectations are. So again, quick, simple consequences.
People that are on this side need to get in the back because you're out in the hallway and you do not line up in the hallway. End of the line. End of the line.
Cool. Right, can you think of other times when you'd have a natural consequence? Oh, she was. I'm gonna write it down here. So think of when kids do something and there's just a natural consequence to what happens.
When they put their hand up first for an answer,
Cool.
is that natural? But sometimes they just put their hand up, they haven't actually got the answer.
Just, or they don't know, I forgot.
Yes.
To be the first to answer the question, but they.
And then get a fright when you ask.
Okay, so hand up, get to answer question.
I guess it's opposite when they call out, you don't take the answer until they raise their hand.
When they snatch something off another child and you just quietly give it back to the other child, so then that sort of thing.
So they
Is that
don't
what
get
you
to
mean?
have it.
You know, or if they can't share, then you might remove it.
Or when they release their playtime and they act like they've been in jail for 10 years. You know, you call them back.
So what's the, so you call them back?
Don't call them back, yeah,
Yeah.
stand behind.
So running,
Cheers in, and, yeah, like free willy.
at play and call back. Yep, other times.
Making a mess, cleaning it up.
Yeah.
Not hiding under the table and making that, they didn't make the mess, but they did.
I didn't have it last.
Yeah.
They're good at ignoring it, that's the issue.
Yeah. Any other natural consequences that we can?
Like when they're mucking around, tidying up, so then you start tidying up at break time.
Yeah.
Kind of horrible one where if they're mean to other people, people may not want to play with them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, eh? And it's so hard for some children to understand that. Woohoo! I'm feeling coffee neat. What happens if a student refuses to eat lunch?
Oh.
They're hungry, yeah. Yeah, it's a natural consequence, absolutely. So, logical consequences. This one here, snatch something and the thing's removed, that's actually a logical consequence. Because it doesn't just happen after it, but it's something that's quite logical that you then do. Yeah? So say for example, if a child can't use a quiet voice in the library during lunchtime, the librarian may have to go. So that's a logical consequence. If the child keeps blurting out and arguing, she might or he might be what would be a logical consequence for that? They just keep blurting out on the mat, what might be a logical consequence?
Ignore.
Just sitting by you, I'm the one who does it and he just comes and sits
Yeah,
out
gets
of,
to sit somewhere else.
out of range.
If a child puts off doing the work in class time, and we've had this one again, just gets to do it at playtime, so that is a logical consequence as well. If a student breaks or damages something, what's the logical consequence that often happens? Pay for it, or fix it, and if it is there, this is a typical one for a parent, if you break something and it's your toy,
Oh,
you just don't have it, don't have it, that's it. So that's natural and logical consequences. Right, why are these good consequences to use?
Because they reflect the action.
Media.
it's immediate.
Yeah.
Straight away.
And you
So
see
if
that
you look up at these principles here,
self-directed.
self-directed.
It's easy for them to make the connection between the consequence and the action.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
a real word, it's like a real world thing, not like all your losing points.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Hey. Yep. Any other logical consequences you've used with students? We've done lots of talking together. Can you just turn to your partner and actually think about a thing where maybe you've had something happen and you've got a logical consequence that has followed through? Maybe think of 2 or 3 logical consequences. And these guys, if you can form a 3, because otherwise you won't have a pair.
Oh, I'll do 3 with these 2.
There you go. Perfect.
A logical
And the logical consequence of this is the quicker you do it, the quicker you
I was going to say, I respect Oh, yes, wait, I was like, I don't do that. They just sit on the liner. Completely forgot all about them.
That's why you tried to make
Yeah, because they're really nice and it's still the early time and you're just like, can I come in? Oh, hurry up. I was like, shit, we don't do that anymore. But